For a long time, I thought that part of being a professional was keeping your real life and your work life completely separate, compartmentalized, ne'er the two shall meet. While I think that the mentality that your coworkers are your family is actually problematic, I realized I was missing out on an opportunity to view my coworkers as my friends. Today, we're going to be talking about a stirred whiskey drink called a Sazerac, and my epiphany moment with this drink was actually on a work trip with a coworker who I now consider to be a friend. And he had purchased me a to-go Sazerac. In New Orleans, this is common to be able to get even a tasty drink to go in a plastic cup. And he so excitedly brought me this cup. We were meeting up for the evening. And he said, "I got this for you." And it's this reddish drink, about halfway full, like I said, in a plastic cup with a little lemon peel stuck in the glass, in the cup. And I don't know if it was just his excitement or if it really was the aromatic complexity of what's going on in this drink that really hooked me. But even though I had had a Sazerac before, I remember enjoying them in college at a bar in Dallas that we would go to sometime called the Cedars Social. And yeah, something about this one in New Orleans though, it was revelatory. It really made me think. Maybe it was the highbrow, lowbrow combo of having such an excellent drink in a disposable plastic cup container. But I think about that moment a lot. I think about that evening and that experience a lot. And I do remember that on the way home, after we'd met with the people we were supposed to meet with, like I said, it was a business trip, we picked up another one on the way home for a nightcap. So what is a Sazerac? A Sazerac is the official cocktail of New Orleans, and it very closely adheres to the original early 1800s definition of what a cocktail is, in that it includes spirit, sugar, bitters, and water. Water in the form of the ice that dilutes whenever you're stirring it. And specifically, this cocktail falls into the category of improved cocktail, also maybe mid to late 1800s there. But that term came about whenever people started adding absinthe and also maraschino liqueur. This one does use absinthe in the form of a rinse. I'm gonna do a spray, which is why I did that motion. So the Sazerac is important to me for a few reasons. It's the story about it being a gift from a friend and just a great experience in New Orleans. It's the aromatic complexity of what's going on with the Peychaud's bitters, the absinthe, the lemon oil. It's just a wonderful bouquet. It's like if I could make a cocktail perfume or cologne, it would smell like a Sazerac. And thirdly, that it's served down. There's not many cocktails that are stirred and then served not in a coupe or a martini like a V-shaped glass, but served in a old-fashioned glass. And so you'll see it, and it doesn't fill the glass completely, and that's actually on intention. I'll talk about that when I'm actually building it. But yeah, it's unique for a lot of reasons, and I think it's a special one to me, and I hope it will be for you too. Let's take a look at some of the bottles and the gear we need to make a Sazerac. And so if you saw the martini video, the tools will look eerily similar. We need a mixing glass, a bar spoon or something to stir with like a chopstick, a Y peeler to pull off a swath of lemon. We'll be putting a lemon as a garnish on this one as well. You need a jigger to measure things and a strainer to separate the ice from the liquid once we're pouring it into the prepared glass, which is in the freezer. Let's take a look at some of the bottles or the ingredients that we need to make our Sazerac today. Firstly, you need Rye Whisky. This mash bill is 95% rye and 5% malted barley, which is a fairly common rye mash bill. You'll sometimes find all the way up to 100% rye though. Some other producers will do something like only 51, 55% rye. There's nothing wrong with that necessarily. It's just that they may not taste as much like rye. They may taste a little bit more like a bourbon. So I tend to lean towards a rye that has a much higher percentage of rye in the mash bill. We also need Peychaud's bitters. These are kind of New Orleans style aromatic cocktail bitters. They have sort of a cherry and licorice quality that kind of works really well with the absinthe. Absinthe, this is particularly a St. George absinthe vert. It's made from brandy as the base. You're using an extremely small amount of this, and so the absinthe that you're using probably isn't super important as long as you like the aroma. You have it on hand and it smells like licorice. That licorice punch, that sort of fennel and anise root quality is super important to this drink. I put the absinthe in what's called an atomizer. It lets you spray some absinthe into the air like that. You'll use it to spray directly into your glass. Traditionally, this drink called for an absinthe rinse, which requires you to pour maybe a 1/4 ounce of absinthe in your glass, swirl it around to coat the inside of it, and then pour it out into the sink or maybe into another cup if you're gonna enjoy it. I've found that using an atomizer like this really lets you get the aroma without having to waste any of the absinthe or figure out what to do with a 1/4 ounce of absinthe. I know it's only a 1/4 ounce, but it adds up over time. And I've actually had this bottle for a really long time, just a couple sprays at a time per drink. Also, we will need simple syrup. This is just made with 1.5 parts sugar to 1 part water. You can make that batch size as large or as small as you want. I generally just make maybe 2-3 ounces of syrup at a time if I'm planning to use it for an evening or maybe for over the course of a week. It's really just sugar and water. There's no need to make a huge batch because it's really easy to whip together. You can even put it in the microwave for a few seconds just to heat up the sugar crystals and get them moving. I'll put a recipe down below just so it's easier, but you'll need simple syrup for this drink. And then finally, we'll top it off with some lemon oil. So we'll pull a swath with that Y peeler and express it over the top of the drink. So here we go. First we'll do 2 ounces of rye, filling the 1 ounce side of this jigger twice, 1 ounce, and 2. We need a 1/4 ounce of this semi-rich simple syrup. Like that. And then we'll do 4 dashes of this Peychaud's bitters. Some recipes will call for 2 dashes, 3 dashes. I really like Peychaud, so I go with 4. You could probably work that up to as high as you like, but 4 works well for me. 2, 3, 4. If, rule of thumb, if you're looking at the drink and it doesn't look pink or red at all, you probably don't have enough. And if it looks like a like bright red Jolly Rancher, you may have overdone it. But anything in between there, however you like it, is great. We'll stir it up for about 25-30 seconds. You can see the glass is frosted from spending some time in the freezer. And important while you're making a Sazerac is before you pour the drink into the glass, you're going to want to atomize that absinthe right into it. And so you'll know it's done when the ice falls into the liquid, and whenever you pull the spoon out of the glass, the whole ice mass will kind of keep moving along on its own. It has its own sort of inertia. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. So like I said, we'll get the absinthe here. Do 5, and then we will strain this drink right in. So I mentioned earlier that when you make this drink, you're using a double old-fashioned glass or an old-fashioned glass, and you're going to have, the cup isn't going to look full. And part of that is because the absinthe, when you spray it into the glass, will dry along the sides of the glass. And so the absinthe that made it to the bottom of the glass will actually make it into the drink. But the absinthe that dries on the walls of the glass will kind of continually perfume the drink, and you'll be able to smell it each time you pick up the glass towards your face. I'll pull a swath of lemon like I mentioned, just like this. Nice big one, wow, big lemon today. And we will express it over the surface with the yellow, the outside of the peel towards the glass. Give it a little twist and drop it in. Cheers. Wow, yeah, I just want to keep smelling the glass. It's so aromatically complex. There's licorice, cherry, clove, bubblegum, man. In that rye whiskey, there's a certain sort of, I mentioned bubblegum, there's a quality in these really high percentage rye mash bills where people call them rye spice. I think that's a little bit of a difficult term to quantify. But yeah, there's sort of a bubblegummy, sometimes cinnamon quality in a really high percentage rye mash bill that I think just is excellent for this drink. It plays really well with the bitterness, slight bitterness that comes from the bitters, and then also that absinthe and that's atomized into the glass. This is one of those drinks where you really do need the ingredients as listed. You can sub different ryes, obviously, but you do need absinthe, you need Peychaud's bitters, and you need a lemon. If I don't have one of these ingredients on hand, I'll make a different drink. I'll make an old-fashioned, or if I have some sweet vermouth in the fridge, I'll make a Manhattan variation or something like that. But it really does rely on each of these aromatic compounds to make the drink what it is, to make the drink a Sazerac. That's all on the Sazerac for today. Thanks for coming along with me for story time. Next week we'll be talking about batching up cocktails. We'll kind of do a batched cocktail primer with a big margarita with a little bit of a twist on it. At the end of the day, drinks are for fun, and my goal with this channel is to be able to teach people enough so they can share that fun with the people they love. Come and be amazed at what you can do. Cheers.